Welcome back to another episode of Power Bourbon and a special episode. I never thought we'd get to this part, and I'm kind of excited. I get to put a disclaimer on this
Is by
episode.
the odd jiggling around,
Yep. Hey,
the happy dance.
we get to say this sample was provided to us by the company, and we are very grateful that they supplied it to us, but it will not in any way affect our review of them, even though one of us is a huge fanboy, as you can see over his head, which is Barrell Craft Spirits. And tonight we are going to be reviewing the newest bottle from them, Batch 33. We can talk a little bit about Barrell to start out with. If you've watched the channel at all, you know all about Barrell. Chuck is a huge fan of Barrell. And what is it, Chuck, that they do a little bit different than other people?
They source and blend. So, I mean, they blend magnificently well, partly because they have this fantastic stock of Indiana at MGP, or do we still call it MGP, or is it now Ross and Squibb Distillery,
Yeah,
or
Ross and Squibb. Who knows?
the Squibbles? And then some undisclosed Kentucky distilleries, presumably Barton, and then also at a Dickel in Tennessee. Now, obviously, they bring in some other craft distilleries in New York and Kentucky or Wyoming, Texas, I think, also, and some other places. But
Yep.
they mix these into their batches, young and old. So that's, I guess, what really makes blending unique, and how and big distilleries do it too with their own stuff, right? When they give an age statement, that's the youngest stuff that's in that. It's the youngest barrels that went into that blend. And so a lot of times you have aged barrels in there, and you're using the young and the old to balance out those flavor components of oak, some of the nuttiness, some of the sweetness from some of that age stock, and using that to craft this wonderful whiskey.
Yeah, and I think Barrel should be on everyone's shelf. Maybe not this batch. We'll tell you what we think coming up here, but for the simple fact that they are doing something I think very important to the bourbon community, which is showing that blending and sourced bourbon is good bourbon. They are very transparent with what they're doing. They do a great product, and I mean, they're up. This is batch 33. We've got a lot of the Chuck has a lot of the batches, and we've tried a lot of the batches. And most times it's a good bottle of bourbon. And we very much enjoy it. So we're excited to try batch 33, a little bit about it. And I've got my phone here to make sure I say everything right. What they've got on their press statement is Barrell Batch 33 is a marriage of high rye barrels and high corn barrels, raging in age from 5 to 9 years. So the bottle will have a 5-year statement. Again, that's because according to law, you have to put the youngest age on the bottle. So the high rye barrels were chosen for their distinct stone fruit, black pepper, and nutmeg notes, whereas the high corn barrels were chosen for their rich butterscotch, coffee, and citrus notes. 2 sets of barrels mingled together for 2 months. Then the balance was adjusted for the most optimal combination. So it is distilled and aged in Tennessee, Kentucky, and Indiana, 5, 6, 7, 9-year-old barrels, American white oak, bottled in Kentucky, and it comes in at 116.6 proof.
Yep.
So that's everything.
Barrel
there.
products always barrel proof, so coming in generally above 105, in that 105, 115 range mostly. This one comes in a little bit above that. And I think one of the things that you might be put off if somebody just walks by on the shelf, you see it has a 5-year age statement at $80. You're like, although there's plenty of people selling 4-year MGP out there for more than that. So don't be put off by that. Always look at they release it in their press release. They tell you what ages of barrels went into that. They don't give you quite, at least the detail on the bottle that like a Discovery series does out of Bardstown, but still pretty transparent and open on what's going into the batch.
Yeah. And then with a little bit of research, you can find a lot of stuff. You're not going to find the exact percentages, but
Yeah.
you're going to find everything. So if for some reason you are scared of a certain state, say Tennessee, like some people are, one, I would say you should try it because they do a really good job of blending Tennessee products into their bourbons, but you could find one that doesn't have it in there. So let's get into nose in this and see what we think.
So, I mean, you saw it was distilled in 3 states. So, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee. So, we'll see if TJ's nose picks up on the Tennessee.
I smell absolutely no Dickel notes on this nose whatsoever.
No, when I tasted it previously, I was shocked. If I didn't see that distilled in statement on the bottle, wouldn't have known.
Yeah. So I definitely get some corn notes on there, butterscotch, vanilla, very traditional bourbon notes, but I get some like rye spices on the back of the nose, which is interesting.
Yeah, coming from those high rye barrels,
Yeah.
definitely some spiciness, nuttiness. I get some nuttiness, which
Yeah.
is maybe not quite as nutty out of Beam. I think my first tasting of this, I was even thinking like, oh shoot, are they sourcing a little bit out of Beam? And that's why I asked if you'd had Heather taste it yet. Heather's um, our resident
Booker's
Booker's
expert.
fan, so I was like, ooh, this might be Heather's barrel batch here.
Yeah. But yeah, the nose is delightful. No off-putting notes whatsoever. Very complex. You do get a little bit of ethanol on there, so you do know it's a little bit higher proof. So definitely this is one of those that you just don't shove your nose directly in. You slowly bring your nose to it to get acclimated, everything like that. But very complex, very delightful nose.
Very complex, I think. So as you sit here and give it a few more sniffs, like I'm getting some chocolate notes, getting some sweetness, whether that's like a butterscotch, but it's well woven with the rye spiciness and those rye notes that come in through the back. So it's a really nice combination. Not overly sweet, not overly rye or herbal. Really well balanced.
Yeah, I would say I'm even getting some like cherry notes, some fruit notes somewhere in there. So maybe that's what the sweetness is. So, all right, let's dive on in. Oh, wow.
Ooh, the first thing that hits me is a nutmeg, baking spice, cardamom, and then just really tingles.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, at least on the first sip. So you get that nutmeg, you get a little bit of peanutty, or yeah, I'd say peanutty flavor, but then it just disappears and hits you with like a strawberry shortcake, or strawberry angel food cake is actually what I'm going to go with, because you get some of that sugar and everything like that, and then it comes back to spices on the finish, which like it's just so distinct different parts along the way.
Yeah, I love this spicy. Sometimes we just throw out baking spices or black pepper as the dominant spice. This one to me is just so evident as far as what those are. Like I just get that nutmeg initially, even some cardamom. You're calling a strawberry shortcake. Cardamom to me is a little bit of that herbal plus citrus, but then it comes back to just that nice toasted nuttiness. I wouldn't excuse or I wouldn't mistake this for a toasted bourbon, but those are the notes that I get that are kind of subtle back there as far as that nutmeg and then kind of those toasted baking spices that continue on.
So on the back end of the palate to the finish, I'm getting a caramel macchiato that you would get at Starbucks. Like I get the caramel comes in, but I get that distinct
I wouldn't know what
coffee.
those taste like because I
I
just
know.
drink coffee black.
Well, for those of you like me that like things other than just black coffee all the time, a caramel macchiato. So you're getting the caramel flavors, you're getting a little bit of vanilla, but you're getting a strong coffee note too because of the espresso shot. Like it's all there, and it amazing.
Yeah, and some of that was like I picked up on the chocolate, the cocoa, and the nose, and that to me is what lingers after those baking spices. It's a drying cocoa, which I could see. That's part of that coffee note that you're picking up maybe at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely drying on the finish. I'd say a little bit of oak comes in, but really not a lot. Uh, and then I would agree that there's a like a black pepper finish there. But yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the most complex barrel products I've had. I feel like, I mean, Chuck knows better because he just did all his barrel products blind flighted that he's going to give to our Patreon members as his rankings. So he's done it a little bit more recently than I have. But I would say this is a top five of barrel products that we've had as far as the bourbon batches.
Bingo. Yeah. Not to reveal too much, but yeah, this is my favorite going back to maybe since batch 28, 27. Some of those get hard to distinguish just because each batch is so unique, and you appreciate them in very different ways. But this one for me is a hitter. And I'd say some of the recent ones were I think it's always a buy for me at $80, just because I've never had a bad one. And just of all the other stuff that's being put out in that price point, or even well above that price point, where we've both bought those other bottles and been very disappointed, I think I've never been disappointed with a barrel batch. But batch 33 to me is upper echelon for what I've tasted since, going back to the early 20 batches.
Yeah. I mean, what I would say is if you've been on the fence and you've wanted to buy a barrel product and you haven't done it yet, mainly because you're probably scared of getting a Dickel note at $80 or something like that, this is the one for you. I don't get any of the Dickel flavor or anything like that throughout the whole thing. There is
Nah.
nothing there. It is overly complex. It is really good. I think it's well worth the price point at $80. I having tried other things around that range, there are a lot worse bourbons you could do, and to me, this is the one. Like, if you've been wanting to pull the trigger on a barrel one batch, do it here, and you will be happy. I mean, I'm willing to say, and we'll let Chuck close it out, but I bet he might buy a backup of this guy.
I actually probably going to buy another couple bottles, and I got some special plans for this guy. But yeah, definitely going to keep one in the backup realm, just because I like this one so much. Yeah, it's to me, yeah, definitely the best since they had they had a good run, a batch 24, batch 25, 27, 28. All those were so good. And then it kind of took maybe a step back, but this is really good, and especially recently, I've just bought some bourbon. Part of it's for the channel.
Yep.
But we spend a lot of money on bourbon that doesn't taste near this good. And this one surprised me. You guys know me. I like my age statements. I like my 12 to 15 year products. This one comes in at 5 to 9 years. I'm surprised, pleasantly surprised. The complexity, the depth. This one has something for everybody too. Whether you like sweet, spicy, you're gonna like it.
Yep. So yeah, so that's our recommendation. If you want a barrel, if you've been thinking about it, if you just want a good quality bourbon for the $80 price range, you're not going to be disappointed with this. And if you do buy it, let us know in the comments below. Like, what did you think? Did you like it? Everything like that. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. Like, we got our first press sample sent to us, and here we are saying great praises about it, and people are gonna be like, "Oh, they're just sellouts." I challenge you to buy it, try
Prove me
it,
wrong.
and prove us wrong because this is amazing. It is so good. Once again, thank you, Barrel Craft Spirits, for sending us a sample. And we will gladly review anything you send us, especially if it's this good. That's all I got to say. So,
Thanks for tuning in. Stay neat.
cheers.